right, you babies, 2 more videos for everyone who doesn't know me. It really doesn't matter. Get entertained. Why the fuck not? Just a random guy that's emptying what's on his mind in order to create enough social proof on the internet so that when he actually initiates his idea, enough people will be able to trust where it's coming from and just give him feedback. It really is all I want, man. Just want feedback. All right. And this is a video of my conversation with my friend from Canada. I mentioned her 2 videos ago. What's the difference between acting civilized and being civilized? Here we are going to embark on a journey through history. I don't know if you want to go all the way to the Egyptians, maybe a bit closer to the Greeks, maybe a bit closer to the Renaissance, and before the Renaissance, where the Goth era and everything was dark and gloomy and depressive. So I genuinely am a believer that reality looks different based on the environment that we're in, because we built this reality in our minds. But while we're talking about the civilization, what is civilization? What does it mean, civilization? And it's funny because, like, I just saw a music video, a small speech, and it started with The Office. It was like one of the best things that was ever said. It's like, what's the best advice you ever gotten? And the response was, don't be an idiot. Every time you have to, every time that something needs to be done, I would think, what would an idiot do? And I would do the other thing. I would do the opposite. It really is one of those, like, yeah, if we think that way, then by our version of idiots, we would literally be shying away from that kind of behavior. And ultimately, we would not necessarily be idiotic and all that good stuff. It's fucking fascinating. But the guy discussed kindness. And he was like, as human beings evolved, we evolved past our primal instincts. So how do you judge people? You can't really understand what people are thinking in their minds. But the best you could do is basically look at how they're behaving. And he said, how would you know who is an idiot and who isn't an idiot? The simplest way is to look at somebody if he's kind or not, or she's kind or not. If they're kind, that means they have put in the effort to evolve beyond their primal capacity, their primal emotions. The little kind of I don't know, those literally, it's like the primitive form of our existence is the emotions and how we react to those emotions, like the anger, the yelling, when loving, lusting, all these things. They're not negative emotions, they're just emotions. And if you meet somebody who's kind, that means they have put in efforts in order for them to evolve past responding and reacting to those emotions directly. They have come closer to, I want to say, what civilization is actually trying to tell the world. And so ultimately, those are the people that are not idiots. Why? Because in order for you to get past your emotional state, there's a lot about you that you have to understand. There's a lot about you that you have to give and take. That is where you become civilized, I think. That's when man starts kind of achieving a civilized state, man being gender neutral naturally. And it's funny because, I watched the speech yesterday, but I had this conversation on Saturday. Acting civilized and being civilized was reflected on how parents and children and society actually acts around each other, because most of them are pretending to be a certain kind of way in society. Most of us are kind of like creating an image of how we want others to see us, notice us, reflect on us. And there's a big difference between acting like civilized people, because acting requires a whole lot of effort. And our effort is in portraying an image that doesn't really exist. That's why it's called acting. I am acting the part. I am attempting a character, and I am trying to get over whatever I'm trying. Instead of me actually putting in the effort for me to achieve a certain status that allows me to look at things in a civilized manner. And civilized doesn't mean void of emotions. It really means like you completely understand where your emotions are coming from, why are they coming from, what is it about your environment that's triggering your emotions, all those kinds of things. I believe naturally. So being civilized is learning how to be kind. Firstly to yourself, because naturally you're the first person that requires that attention. Once you start receiving that attention, you kind of get out of your primitive state, your primal state. And you understand where your emotions are coming from, where your feelings are coming from. And it's a fascinating process, I would say. And it's just look at me, just like some random dude online at 10 o'clock at night, just having a conversation with his camera. And you guys, and you, of course. But yeah, over the course of the past year, I had realized how, well, throughout my life, I never wanted to act civilized. I didn't care for it. But I didn't care for it because I saw the hypocrisy in all the people around me that are living in society. And especially when they would say, like, it's funny, it's like most of the things that we are right now are literally the things that we rejected, not the things that we accepted. Oof, that was heavy. Okay, that was very heavy. Most of what we are right now are the things that we rejected. Growing up, engaging with the world. But I don't think this is a difference. Our true nature always reveals itself, regardless of how honest you are about it. It's gonna show up, it's gonna express itself. I made a video about it 3 days ago, or 5 videos, 7 videos, 8 videos ago. And it literally says the video was about that. When you're speaking, when you're doubting yourself, you're saying the truth. When you're honest with yourself, you're saying the truth. When you're lying, you're saying the truth. Because everything about you would always express what your mind is thinking. Everything about you would express it can't be expressed except for the truth that you are. So when I was a kid, I did not want to be civilized because I couldn't understand how I just couldn't be hypocritical the way people are. It's just like forcefully molding yourself into certain things. But I think at this moment right now, trying to explain what's the difference, or just trying to negotiate with myself what's the difference between being civilized and acting civilized, is when it really hit me. I never wanted to act civilized, but I could never understand what being civilized meant. And I think right now I am beginning to get closer to understanding what people meant when they wrote book about how they imagined civilizations. What people meant when they kind of like wrote plays, wrote poetry, created movies about how they imagined civilized people to be. And how all kinds of like, imagine it's always like the people that are misunderstood, that are people that are most honest with themselves. And those are the people that always contribute. Those are the people that are always at the forefront of everything. They don't give advice, they just do the stuff they want to do. The leaders of civilization, I would say, or the civilized part of what history is about. It's funny. Most of what we're taught is more to act civilized, without explaining to us what being civilized actually means. I don't really know what being civilized is, but I think right now I figured out that being civilized is just learning how to be good to yourself so that you in turn would understand when other people are not really good to themselves or being good to themselves, and responding accordingly. Because most of the time when people are being like uncivilized towards you, they're definitely, or there's a high chance they're going through something. And it takes somebody who's a bit civilized, I guess, kind. Let's just choose kind to understand where they might be coming from, and not really. And it takes somebody civilized to not to respond instead of react. Yeah, that's it. How about it's a good video, super good video.